I guess I just started deciding if I come up with a fee that's reasonable,
Mhm,
that you tell them up front,
mhm.
and half of them like say that's all or will give me a tip, which is like, whoa, I wouldn't have
Yeah.
expected this, but because they're just so grateful that you're helping them.
Yeah.
So I stopped. It's like find that amount of money that again is not offensive.
Mhm.
It's not about being unreasonable with
Right.
people, but that is worth your time because your time is worth something.
Hi, guys, and welcome to the House Call Vet Cafe podcast. I'm Dr. Eve Harrison. I'm a full time integrative concierge house call veterinarian in Los Angeles, and I help other vets to build their unique mobile practices on their terms. This podcast is for and by house call and mobile veterinarians, so it is meant to give our community a platform to connect, to share our stories, to lift each other up, and to support each other. Most of us work solo as lone wolves, right? So for me, it's been really powerful to be able to physically hear the voices of my colleagues from all over the world and to get a chance to feel that we truly are part of a community of very real other human beings who get it. While you may be alone in that little bubble of your own vehicle when you're on the road seeing patients, I welcome you to join our community by tuning into our own podcast when you're on your way to your next house call. Whether you're a super experienced house call vet with 30 years of experience, you're a brand new prospective house call vet just looking to get started, or you're house call curious, there will be something for you in this podcast. Each episode, you will hear interviews from other mobile veterinarians just like yourself who are doing unique and innovative things, vets who are sharing their stories, their struggles and challenges, and you can also look forward to hearing valuable information and perspectives from specialists and experts outside of our micro niche. And finally, if becoming a house call veterinarian is something that you've been thinking about exploring, or you're looking for some extra support getting your own mobile practice to feel more profitable and sustainable for you, check out the information in the show notes about my course and our above and beyond supportive private community for members only, plus our monthly group coaching sessions within the House Call Vet Academy. You can also check out my free public Facebook group, which is also called the House Call Vet Cafe, the same name as this podcast, and which is a warm and cozy community for mobile vets to support each other in professional and personal development, in creative entrepreneurship, and in friendship. So thank you guys for spending time with me today. Let's dive into the episode. Hey, everyone. We have an awesome guest with us today that I've been trying to get on this show for ages. Finally, I've snagged her. So today we have Dr. Dale Krier with us. She is a born and raised New Yorker like I am. She freed herself from the East Coast and moved to Colorado for undergrad when she was 18, graduated from CSU in 1987, and then moved back east to be closer to her mom after graduation. She worked for 10 years at a brick-and-mortar practice. When the practice sold to corporate, she quit the next day. Woman after my own heart. Dale started Creature Comforts Mobile practice in 1997 with a Dodge truck. She discovered the beauty of in-home euthanasia practice, joined the IAAHPC, and became certified in hospice and palliative care in 2017. COVID was the smokescreen that allowed her to transition her non-end-of-life clients and patients to other veterinarians at the time, and she is now currently 98% end-of-life care. 2% of her clientele are A-plus clients that she still works with from previously, and awesomely, she is currently in process of transitioning to working 3 weeks a month and playing 1 week a month. She also shared a really beautiful piece of writing that she did about her why and her inspiration with me just before we recorded this episode. And that will be in the show notes for everyone that would like to check that out. It's really moving and special. And I'm just glad that you guys will get to read it because I found it deeply moving. So awesome. You guys would be able to check that out. Dale and I have a personal connection. I don't know. We've kind of known each other bouncing back and forth on Facebook like 5 or more years, something like that, just kind of like supportive comments on each other's stuff and just always fond feelings and a fond connection without knowing the person, as you know how that is on Facebook. But we got to really know each other when Dale and her amazing daughter came on one of my house call vet retreats this past spring. And we just really hit it off, and we've been in a bit of like a mutual admiration club since then. So Dale is just a wonderful, wonderful human. And again, I've been nagging her to get on this show since April. So I'm super excited that you're here. Welcome, Dr. Dale.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here too. I am an admirer from afar, I guess, well, just East Coast to West Coast. Thank God for Facebook.
Yeah, I'm saying, seriously. But it's just, like, wonderful to, like, finally know you as a human being, and, the first time I gave you a hug, I remember being like, "This is Dale. Oh my god, okay, like, the real human being." And it was just special. It was like an instant connection, so I'm very grateful that you guys were there. And who's your pup in the background for those watching on
That's
YouTube?
that's our boy Tommy. Tommy
Aw.
just came out from a tough time shoveling snow, first snow we've had this season, and he's trying to get warm now. He may start
I bet.
barking because he likes to be under a blanket. And if he does start barking, I may have to take a break and put him under a blanket.
That's totally okay. He can definitely join the podcast if he desires to do that. And thanks again for showing up today fully clothed on the first snowy, cozy day. Whenever I have people on the podcast, they're usually surprised that it's like a visual thing too. And I'm like, yeah, you got to put clothes on.
it,
So
it was the day, yeah, it was the day I thought I'd be in my pajamas.
that would have been cute too, though. Like pajamas are totally okay to do podcast recordings in. And truth be told, I have recorded podcasts in my pajamas as well, but I guess people just couldn't tell. Or maybe they could, I don't know. But anyway, so I wanted to start out the episode how I usually do by asking, what is your favorite snack to eat in the car if you eat snacks in the car?
I eat everything in the car. So my old to-go favorite snack was probably popcorn and nuts. Now that I have evolved into gluten-free, dairy-free, everything fun-free, all the good stuff free, I found these chocolate, they're cacao, oatmeal, hemp seed, chia seed cookies that, believe it or not, they sell at CVS. And only certain CVSs though. So I know where my stash is. I know where to find it on the shelf. And whenever I get one of those 40% coupons, that's my go-to.
Fantastic. Do you know what they're called? Like, I want to try them now.
I think they're like literally called chocolate healthy cookies or something goofy like that, but I'll have to let you know because they're really good. They're really healthy.
They sound delicious. Like, speaking of cacao, like right now, just before our call, I made myself, I like to make little potion experiments and I'm drinking like cacao. It's like cocovia or something like that. It's actually like for health. And I'm like, I'm drinking chocolate, but it's supposedly for my health. And then I put in this organic India Tulsi sweet rose tea bag and I squeezed out like one of those, those long straw tubes with honey in them, like the different flavors. I have a few from the last Renaissance fair I went to and I dumped that in. And this is like the best drink I've ever had. So since you mentioned like cacao, I had to like, or cocoa or whatever, I had to share that with you. I figured you'd appreciate it.
You may have to share the recipe,
I will. I will.
please.
Maybe in the show notes. Amazing. So you have a really cool history and you've been doing this a long, long time. And whenever I hear you speak, I'm just struck by how much wisdom and just beautiful stuff you do in your practice and realizations that you've had and things like that. So I'm just really excited to hear a little bit more about that. And I know you had like a rapid transition. Corporate came knocking, you quit the next day, which is incredible. And then you just dove into your practice. What made you go towards house call practice? What was your journey like towards starting a house call practice?
So I'd actually back up maybe 2 years in that my son was 3 years old. We were thinking about having a second child, and it was just very difficult working in a 5 doctor busy practice. They were not amenable to making any compromises about me leaving early or whatever, coming in late for my son's needs. And I was looking in one of the, I think it was the AVMA journal, and one evening, and I happened to see an article on the Dodging trucks, similar to the LaBoy, which I think the Dodging company doesn't exist anymore. But I saw an article and I remember looking at it and it was my light bulb moment. I was just like, oh my God, this is like James Herriot, but just modernized, because I love the thought of house calls from reading James Herriot books when I was a child, always envisioned being, I guess, the female version of him. And when I saw the advertisements in the journal, it was just like, wow, this is so freaking amazing. Can we curse?
Absolutely. You
Okay,
can say the
cool.
whole F-bomb if you want.
It was fucking amazing. So
Yeah.
I actually, at that point, I mean, I loved my job. I had no intention of leaving. I wasn't pregnant at that point, but I did the research. I sent away to the company. I got all the information. I had the folder in my possession, but I loved my job. And interestingly, Well, okay, couple things. My birthday's April Fool's Day.
Nice.
I'm a big prankster, and I walked into work, it was April Fool's Day, and they said, "We've sold to corporate." And I'm like, "This is an April Fool's joke, right?" But it wasn't.
Happy fucking birthday, right?
Yeah. I literally felt like something died inside of me at that moment. And my practice was the first practice in the state of Connecticut to be sold to BCA.
Right.
So we were the first practice in the entire state to go corporate. So it was new. It wasn't like I had anybody to talk to, compare notes with, or anything. I just knew I wasn't corporate material. Never happened, never will be. So now, mind you, now this was 2 years later after I had done my research. I had a 4-month-old baby at home. Plus, my son was now 5 years old. And I went home and I discussed it with my husband, and we decided that we didn't want to be part of corporate anything. And so I did. I went in and quit the next day. I got threatened with lawyers. There was a whole non-compete. I hadn't signed a contract in 10 years. The only contract I had signed was my first year working for them. And after that, it was just a handshake. And they had held their end of the obligation. I held up mine, but I felt like I don't owe this corporation anything, and I refused to sign a contract. And I think my bosses maybe had told them all the bets were under contract. I don't really know, but that's where the lawyers came from. And I had to hire one, and nothing came from it, but other than anxiety and stress,
Mhm.
nausea.
Yeah.
And, but the good thing was at that point, I knew what I was going to do because I'd done the research. I had all the information, and it was just about figuring out where the money was going to come from and designing a truck without, like, I didn't own a fax machine back then. All we could do is fax stuff back and forth to each other. So I had to go to a friend's house with a fax machine. It wasn't like we could, I don't know, email. It just, the technology wasn't there. So it was a little more complicated. But I remember my husband flew out to Iowa to pick up the truck, and he drove it home and he pulled it into the driveway, and it was this big ass thing. And I'm like, oh my God, how am I going to drive this, maneuver this and function? In Connecticut, some of the roads are really steep and narrow and icy and snowy. And we made it work for almost 3 decades.
Unreal. That is so cool. And do you still have the truck, or did you sell it when you converted to end of life
So what
primarily?
happened is when COVID happened, at that point, I guess the truck was about 25 years old, 26 years old, still functional, still working, but it was just sitting in the driveway because we were like we were so close to New York City and Manhattan. I don't know. I mean, I think I've talked to other vets about it. We all had different demands on us, but because we were so close to Manhattan, we were told we could only perform emergency work. We couldn't do anything routine, no space, no neuters, no vaccines, nothing routine. And so euthanasia fell into that category, but I wasn't bringing the truck with me to go to people's homes because people just wanted to be inside their homes. Plus, I didn't have paper towels and all the things that I needed to clean up my truck. So my truck was just sitting in the driveway. And actually, a house call vet from Manhattan called me at one point, and she had shut down her practice. And she was just asking me how I was functioning, and was even contemplating that she was thinking about buying her own truck. And that just kind of made me think about, we truly thought after 25 years, nobody would want to buy the truck. But what I did is I took a video. It was like maybe a 3-minute video of me walking around the truck inside, showing all of its, wonders, and then turning the engine on, and you could literally hear the engine purr. And I posted it. And within hours, I had like 8 people asking me how much I wanted for it. I sold it within 24 hours.
Oh my God.
Um, Probably didn't ask enough money for it, but it wasn't about the money. We wanted it to find a happy home. One person wanted to take it to Mexico and wondered if it would, make it into the remote areas of Mexico. And my husband and I were like, I don't think so. I mean, it didn't belong in Manhattan, on the bouncy pothole roads. So
Yeah.
it ended up going to some guys in Nevada right before lockdown, where they told us nobody could fly anymore. They flew from Nevada to Hartford. They Ubered from Hartford to my home, which was like an hour-and-a-half ride. We did the whole financial stuff in like 20 minutes. They didn't even want to come in and use our bathroom. I think they were nervous, COVID nervous. My husband said, "Don't you want to test drive it?" The guy looks at him and he goes, "I got 3,000 miles to test drive it." And off they went.
Oh,
So,
that's sick.
yeah. So
You're like, give it right now. Whatever it is, I'll take it. Okay, bye.
Yeah. No, so they had a long journey ahead of them and we followed them on their way home and kept in touch. And they had a fleet of trucks. They had maybe 3 trucks at home and they had another truck that was the same company in the same year as mine. And they thought mine was in better condition. So they kind of knew what they were getting into. And like they never had to call to inquire how to work this system or that system, which somebody who had never owned one of the trucks, like, I don't know, hit it 3 times and
Right.
say your prayers and then it'll start kind of a thing. We took it to the mechanic, have them do it once, so we sent it on its way. Very happy that it found a new home.
That's amazing. That's cool that you took it to the mechanic and had the once over before you sent it off. And
Oh yeah,
but
no, that was
yes,
had to.
yeah, yeah. Like, and you sold it in 24 hours, and this is over COVID. Is that right?
Mhm.
Yeah, unbelievable. That's so cool. Hey guys, I wanted to take a quick break to remind everyone that we have the House Call and Mobile Vet virtual conference coming up. Ticket sales are open again for our third annual conference, February 3rd and 4th, 2024. This is a conference where we actually can be together face to celebrate each other and learn together in community. This is a conference that is for us and by us. This is where we get to meet our colleagues from all over the world, connect with our people in real time, learn actionable tips, tricks, and inspiration that is specific to our special micro niche of practice. If you're unsure if this is for you, here's what a few attendees have said in the past. Dr. M said, "It was 1,000 times more intimate than any conference, virtual or in person, that I've ever attended." Dr. A said, "It was a perfect mix of practical information regarding the logistics of seeing house call appointments and the mental side of house call business ownership." Dr. D said, "There were times that I just teared up with emotion to feel a part of a wonderful group and to know that I was not alone in this adventure." You're truly not alone. We're all here with you, no matter what type of mobile or house call practice you have, or even if you're brand new to this community. This conference is for you if you're super experienced or if you're still thinking about whether you want to be a house call or mobile vet to begin with. This conference is for you whether you're doing end of life care in the home, whether you're doing acupuncture only house calls, whether you're an integrative vet, or whether you're a full service laboit practice. This conference is for you if you're anything in between. If you can't make it in person, no worries. Recordings are available afterwards for a limited time. All of the information is in the link in the show notes, so please reach out if you have any questions, and I can't wait to see you there. And how did you find that transition to then going into people's homes and just kind of focusing on the end of life? How was that switch?
For 25 years, that truck was my third child.
Yeah.
Like it was my third child. I would go to bed worrying, was it too cold? Was it too hot? We had to keep it air conditioned in the summer and heated in the winter and be sure the drugs were all at the appropriate temperature. So we'd have to think about it when we went on vacation. So I thought it was going to be really, really hard. And it was like, I guess the right timing because I mean, we said goodbye and I have a video of waving goodbye to my truck and watching it drive down the road. I miss it, but it was a lot of work keeping it clean, maintaining it. I see some of the folks, I'm on a house school page with the folks who have the Laboits and some of the other trucks. And,
Yeah.
there's stories of getting stranded and stuck on the side of the road. I mean, I have all those stories and I don't miss that. The panic phone calls to my husband, the mechanic. I mean, the mechanic was on speed dial. He was a good friend. We tipped him well.
Awesome. That's really fascinating. And I think I'm glad the conversation went in this direction. I didn't even realize that you previously had a truck and that you sold it over COVID. And I think that's really relevant right now because I see a lot of folks who start out with the big Laboit or the big mobile clinic and thinking that they actually have to do that to be a legitimate vet and that they have to provide all the bells and whistles and they have to invest like hundreds of thousands of dollars into this like mobile clinic essentially. And at the same time, I'm also seeing a huge flux of people selling their mobile trucks who are just like a year or two into practice. And I think that completely all tracks with everything I've heard and your story that it's a real investment and it's a heavy investment. And like you called that truck your child and you worried about it on vacations, that's like I think of house call practice as sort of a lightweight operation. Like you can shift and pivot, and you're light as a feather. You don't have a whole lot of stuff to worry about, a whole lot of expenses. But when you start with the truck, that is a substantially heavier operation. That is not this feather lightweight house call practice that most people actually is what they're seeking, to have this lightness and freedom. And I think it makes so much sense to me that you actually don't miss it and that you're now moving in the direction of 3 weeks of work, 1 week of vacation. Like, it makes so much sense to drop that weight and to release it, and, like, the whole lifestyle is lighter as well, right?
Even on winter days like this, my husband would have to shovel plow the driveway. And it was 2 days that it would take him to clean off the truck. We didn't have a garage to put it in. We just couldn't afford it. And so he would have to take out a ladder and climb on top and get all the snow off because you're not allowed on the roads with all the snow on top of the vehicle. It was a 2-day project for him. So I don't miss that. He doesn't miss that.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
But contrary or opposite to you, because I know you were in a fan of surgery, I used to
At
love
first, and then I wasn't. Used to love surgery.
I used to love surgery. And I think when I was thinking of house calls, the part that, I don't know, stymied me in my thinking in my brain was, but I wanted to do spays. I wanted to do neuters. I wanted to do procedures. And I mean, I'm proud of all the spays and neuters I did at people's homes where, you sedate the pet in the house and then you carry it out. It doesn't even know it's in your truck and you do the procedure and then you carry it in and it wakes up inside its house. And it's like, I feel like 90% of animals have like post spay and post neuter trauma at the animal hospitals. I don't care how much fear free they're doing. So many puppies, I feel like, oh, my dog loved going to the animal hospital in the beginning. And then I don't know what happened. After the spay, after the neuter, they never wanted to go back again. Like, duh.
Duh. Yeah. That's pretty brilliant, actually. I think for folks listening, it never occurred to me that if you're doing surgery on a mobile basis, you can sedate them, give them their pre-med in the home, and then bring them to the truck. That's pretty brilliant. And I mean, anything mobile that reduces the amount of time spent in the clinic, I believe reduces the trauma that animals have. And then to take it a step further, that you were doing house call, pre-med, and then surgery on the truck. That's really cool. That's pretty genius. And I think you're absolutely right. It's a spay neuter trauma that so many of our patients have.
Well, my husband, and I guess again, today, a day of reminiscence, my husband would have said his favorite days in the whole wide world were snow days. So we had a surgery because what I would do is the kids would be home from school, like, oh shit, what do I do with the kids now? But they would be sleeping in their beds. Either he or I would go pick up the pet in a 4-wheel drive vehicle, bring it home because the truck did not go out in the snow. That was an agreement we made in the beginning. So bring it home and we would have whatever. We would do our surgeries out in the truck and he'd be checking in on the kids. And the kids would be sleeping in or, he'd go in and make them breakfast and then come back out and help me. And so those were his like favorite days of all, like to just be at home and be able to be there for our kids, yet kind of working too. So yeah.
That sounds amazing. And remind me, your husband is a vet tech, is that right?
Yeah, so he was in the trades when I bought the truck and he was getting fed up with the work he was doing and I was needing an assistant and I knew I couldn't afford, in the beginning, the phone wouldn't ring. And all I kept thinking of is if I hired an actual assistant, I'd be paying them from like whatever, 8 to 4. And then the phone would ring at 5 o'clock. And it's like, are you freaking kidding me? Like I paid this person all day to be here. And now I'm going out on my own anyway. So it just became easier for him to leave his job and make himself available to me when he could. Plus he was sort of became the stay-at-home dad. So he was able to be there for the kids, which helped with childcare costs and expenses and stuff.
Beautiful. How did you get the phone to ring? Was it just time?
I used to take my truck and drive it around town and park it in obvious places where I was sure that they could see my logo and my phone number. And I think sometimes the familiarity of the Dunkin' Donuts stops or the local places in town. Someone once called and they thought we had a fleet of trucks because the lady said, I see your truck, all over town. There must be 5 of them. And it's like, no, my husband's like, that's just my wife and on major miles. Yeah. So just parking in areas, I don't know, you don't need as many clients with
Right.
house calls. I mean, I look at these people who say they do 8, 9 appointments a day, and I'm like, shoot me.
I know. I know. It makes me want to vomit in my mouth hearing that. Jeez.
Yeah. And I'm a talker. So I like these clients become your friends. And I like going to their house. And I mean, half the time we'd spend the first half hour just catching up on family and kids. And then I'd be like vaccinating their pets and they wouldn't even know. And I'd be like, whatever, ready to go. And they're like, aren't you going to vaccinate my pet? And it's like, I already did that.
Like an
Like,
hour
yeah, an hour ago. So, but yeah, and when I say 8 or 9 or whatever the number is, I mean, we all have different needs.
Yes.
I was the solo breadwinner predominantly. I mean, and then when I didn't pay him a salary, I just bought him lunch. But,
Nice.
so we shared but we also don't live large or we didn't then, and we try not to. So we weren't supporting, whatever. We don't have a second home anywhere. So, I mean,
Yeah.
so
Like a
it just
modest.
depends on what your needs are.
Right, that's exactly right. No, I mean, you have a point, and me vomiting in my mouth when I hear about doing 8 or 9 appointments a day is not a commentary on anything other than that I would hate to do that myself. But there's some people who love to be busy and who need a financial income that is tied to that amount of high volume. And it's not common in house call practice, but it exists. And for people who love that, power to you, right?
Well, the other problem I have is just it's also a logistical thing. Like you live in a busy area where there per capita, there's a lot of people,
Mhm.
but I'm sure it also takes you a long time to just drive down the street. I live in a town of about 3,000 people. So I'm a half an hour from anywhere. And if my business had to survive on my town per se, I would have closed my doors, whatever, 28 years ago. It was only my willingness to drive. So when sometimes people say things like, oh, well, I would never drive more than 45 minutes or an hour or whatever. And I get that. I respect that. But then I probably would have a lot of days where I made no money. So if on a day where I have nothing booked and someone an hour and a half away calls and they don't mind paying what I ask them for, because I explain, look, I'm driving an hour and a half each way. This is what it's going to cost. If they say yes, I don't mind. I'll get in the car and go.
Yeah.
But there are days where it's out of the question to drive an hour and a half. So it's just, yeah, based on
Yeah.
your needs. I mean, but that's, I guess, the beauty of being your own boss and having your own practice and getting to make those calls because there are days I now have people answering the phone for me and I just tell them on any given morning what I have the bandwidth for.
Right.
And if I don't have the bandwidth to get in the car and drive an hour, they know that. And I tell them I'd rather you book nothing and I have a light day or no day because I need a down day. Or if they're nice people, if they're nice to you, then I'll go and help them. So it's just wanting to work with kind people and actually getting my checks carte blanche to if people are giving them a difficult time on the phone, I don't need their business. I don't want them to be mean to the people answering my phone. So it's okay to turn business away.
Absolutely. I agree with that 100%. And I do the same. My vet tech has the permission to veto any client. Like, if you don't feel comfortable with this person, we're not doing this. I think that's a really important and empowering thing that contributes to the feel of a practice being safe, a safe job, a safe environment, like a place people want to work. Their feelings and opinions matter and are taken into consideration. And then, of course, like, it protects us too. Like, if they get a vibe, thank you for letting me know so I don't end up in this mean person's home. And then, we have a whole other issue with the VCPR or whatever. So I really love that you have that system and that flexibility for yourself. It is a really interesting thing that, when you're a house call vet, especially in the beginning as you're growing your practice, there may be appointments that are outside of travel zone or maybe a little farther than you're used to driving. And I think that is, at least in the beginning, something to keep an open mind about. Like, as a house call vet, we're on the road, like we're road tripping every day. That's the point. We're on a big, beautiful, awesome, and fun house call road trip. So if you hate driving, that's something to consider. And then also finding what your boundaries are. Like, if you can enjoy the drive, listen to a bunch of podcasts and like beautiful music or make phone calls to people that you haven't spoken to for a while. I love doing that. like my mobile office when I have house calls that are far away. And I will do house calls that are like an hour and a half, 2 hours away if it's the right client. And I love those drives. I'm like, yeah, I get to catch up with this best friend, or like I get to catch up on all of these podcasts I've been wanting to listen to for ages. And I really like it. And of course, I have all my snacks and everything in the car. And so it's like something you can really get into and enjoy. If you hate driving or long drives are not right for you, totally cool. It's just, it makes it a little more challenging if you completely rule out slightly farther. And then again, my farthest clients are my highest paying too. So I'm like, I'm literally getting paid huge bucks to go on a road trip with myself.
If you come up, I guess I just started deciding if I come up with a fee that's reasonable,
Mhm.
that you tell them up front,
Mhm.
and half of them like say that's all or will give me a tip, which is like, whoa, I wouldn't have
Yeah.
expected this, but because they're just so grateful that you're helping them.
Yeah.
So I stopped. It's like, find that amount of money that, again, is not offensive.
Mhm.
It's not about being unreasonable with
Right.
people, but that is worth your time, because your time is worth something. And the weirdest thing is that it seems like if your schedule is empty and you agree to take that hour and a half or 2 hour call, the next thing you know, the phones are blowing up and all of a sudden you're like, oh crap, why did I agree to this? But
Yeah.
then you're busy.
Yeah, and if you've charged an appropriate amount of money for your time, then it's all just the same, you know?
Mhm.
It's all just the same in terms of income anyway.
But also I found sometimes people will, oh, that's too much money. And it's like, I'll turn it around and say, well, what were you expecting it was going to cost? And I mean, for the people that say $25, clearly we're not going to find a common ground. But if sometimes people say something reasonable, I'm willing to compromise because
Well,
it's bringing money into my pocket. It's helping them.
yeah.
It's like, why not? I mean, I can be generous. I pay it forward fund. I have clients who donate money to me to help clients who can't afford my services. So I like playing Santa Claus.
Yeah, I love that. Actually, I love that you do that. I have a little bit of a similar thing. I have a sliding scale that I offer when people tell me specifically that they would be interested in something like that. So I play the cards similar. Like, what do you think would be fair? Because nobody wants to say some amount of money that makes them look really cheap, or like they're admitting that they're devaluing you. People usually come up with something that is fair.
Right. If
And
it's $25 or even $50 off from what, I mean, for the PR,
right.
it's worth it.
And the good vibes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like Santa
And,
Claus, I
and,
love
and
it.
oftentimes, like, the weird thing is oftentimes they're so grateful that you come that they're sending you home with a bottle of wine and some fresh
Mhm.
baked cookies, or they're writing some rave review on Facebook, on Google for you or whatever that gets you other clients. They're tired of hearing no.
Yeah, yeah, and it's a nice energetic exchange. I have a client, one of my earliest clients that's on a sliding scale. I've never raised the prices on them. Every time I see them, they make me this absolutely extravagant, incredible dinner and drinks, and they send me home with like, I don't know. I look forward to those appointments all the time because I'm like, I'm just like hanging out with a friend and they're taking really good care of me and I'm taking good care of their cat. But that's like no big deal to me. That's easy. That's second nature, but I get to have this beautiful friendship and just be cared for. Like, what a special thing, you know?
Right. It's about the money, but it's not about the money. And the bottom line is you get to decide.
That's exactly right. So well put. Oh, goodness. I knew this was going to be a good conversation. Hey, thanks for joining us for this episode. We had so much to talk about that there is a second episode to continue our riveting conversation. I hope you'll join us for our next conversation, and I hope to see you at the House Call and Mobile Vet Virtual Conference, February 3rd and 4th, 2024. Can't wait to see you there. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the House Call Vet Cafe. If you enjoyed this episode, then hit the subscribe or follow button on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever you listen to podcasts so you never have to miss an episode. This podcast is made specifically for you, so don't be shy if you'd like to reach out and let me know your thoughts on this episode. You can find me on Instagram and Facebook as The House Call Vet Academy, where I also share more valuable content. If you're interested in learning more about consulting for House Call Vets or the House Call Vet Academy online course and community, please click on the link in the show notes. Have an amazing rest of your day, and I can't wait for you to join us for our next episode of the House Call Vet Cafe.